Hello, it's Anja here with a short spotlight on one of the books from the Bromley House collection. I've recently finished reading this, The Complete Smuggler by Jefferson Farjeon, published in 1938. It's part of our biography section and has the class mark CA8781, so it normally lives up in the attics. I came across it when we were shuffling the collections around after they had been returned from the off-site store where they'd been during the building works. I've previously read a couple of murder mysteries by Farjeon, which I particularly enjoyed, so I couldn't resist this one when I found it. Jefferson Farjeon was born in 1883 and lived to be 72. He published many books between 1924 and his death in 1955. This is the classic publicity shot from the dust jacket of one of his books. He was part of a literary family. His father, Benjamin, was a particularly prolific Victorian author, and both his brother Herbert and his sister Eleanor were also successful writers, Herbert as a dramatist and Eleanor as a children's author. Joseph is mostly known today for his crime novels, stories, plays and screenplays. These have recently had something of a renaissance, since his Mystery in White was among the first books reissued by the British Library as part of their new classic crime series in 2014. They have gone on to republish another 3 of Farjeon's books in that series, The Z Murders, 13 Guests and 7 Dead. I've read Mystery in White and 7 Dead, both of which are really atmospheric, nicely intriguing and a lot of fun. Most of his books were published as Jefferson Farjeon, but he did also author a few under the pseudonym Anthony Swift. We have 7 books in the Bromley House collection by Jefferson Farjeon. These include the 4 from the British Library Classic Crime series, but the other 3 are rather more varied. There's a cricketing book by his brother Herbert from 1946, for which Joseph wrote the introduction, The Complete Smuggler, which I'm reviewing today, and a children's book called Caravan Adventure, which was his last published work from 1955. We also have 3 children's books by his sister Eleanor, although we don't have any of his father's works. The Complete Smuggler was issued in 1938, so about halfway through Farjeon's publishing career. It is illustrated throughout with line drawings and monochrome plates by Jack Matthew. Matthew was born in 1911 and was a well-known illustrator and book cover designer. He seems to have worked in various genres, including many crime and mystery books, as well as a number of classic Ladybird books. In his introduction to The Complete Smuggler, Farjeon comments that it's nice to write a book which has not depended wholly, or almost wholly, on my own imagination or experience, which suggests that he considered it to be essentially a work of non-fiction. However, as he goes on to state, his own first-hand knowledge of the subject is negligible. It is also notable from reading the book that he doesn't offer much in the way of original research or corroborating evidence, instead presenting a string of unconnected anecdotes with little analysis. It's essentially a retelling of smuggling lore rather than an actual history. In fact, one of the bibliographic websites I found had this listed as one of Farjeon's novels. Don't let that put you off, though. The author tells these legends and tales with great relish and an enormous sense of fun. He examines stories of smuggling from different parts of the world and in different periods, from the medieval to his own present. He also has detailed chapters on the exploits of some of the more well-known smugglers, such as the amazing Jean Lafitte from New Orleans, the French Mandrin the Magnificent, or the smugglers of the Pyrenees who went by the titles of Don Q and Don Sebastian. He shows no qualms about the fact that he makes no effort to disentangle myth from reality. He's just telling a good story. And, aside from some rather uncomfortable instances of the racism and misogyny typical of 1930s literature, he generally succeeds. Overall, it's an excellent piece of swashbuckling escapism. And it has been quite popular over the years too. Unfortunately, in the 1930s and 40s, we didn't write the year on the issue slips when a book went out, but we can assume that the first rush of borrowing was when the book was new. It was borrowed 24 times in the first few years that it was in Bromley House. It then languished a bit, being borrowed only 3 times in the next 30-odd years, and there was a 25-year gap between 1973 and 1998. But it has had a bit of a resurgence since. Between 2002 and 2015 it was borrowed 7 times, before I took it out again earlier this year. I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully once we're back in the library and issuing books to our members, some of you will have the chance to read and enjoy it too.